it's almost cliche to, for all of YouTube throughout the years to always say, just be yourself, be authentic and everything. But I think now more than anything, don't look at YouTube as something that you need to make yourself bigger than you already are. You don't need to come at it with this idea that you're producing some television show or anything like that. You don't have to buy into the hype that, Mr. Beast has 150 people working for him and all of this kind of stuff.
This is the first time I've seen your tattoo in its natural habitat.
That's it, upside down. I guess people listening to this are going, what is that supposed to be? People watching this will know.
Yeah.
Okay, there. You can sort of see it from there. So what it says is this. I should get the closer up to the microphone.
You know what we can do? We can literally put something in. We'll put like a close up of it on the screen while you discuss it.
Okay, that's what.
So you don't need to contort yourself into some pretzel.
So this is. It took me a long time to figure out this design, and I consulted with this tattoo artist I like, and kind of had him, express my vision to him. And so what this is the Golden Gate Bridge looking from the San Francisco side towards Marin, because I came from San Francisco, and then right below that is a heart, because my heart is still in San Francisco, even though I'm on the other side of the bridge in Marin County. So you can see that. And then I also have the sunrise on it'd be on the right side, which is correct. I didn't really matter, but somehow I wanted that to be on the correct side that the sun would rise, because I prefer sunrises to sunsets, because I like the forward-looking nature of sunrises, that they're always looking forward. So that's sort of the basis of that tattoo, and I really like it a lot.
You opted for your right arm. Was there a reason for right versus left, or was it just like whatever?
Not really. Because I had this tattoo on my left arm, which is my YouTube tattoo one, which I'm not thrilled with at this point, because it's such a fine line. It's kind of hard to really read it. So I may get that worked on to kind of fix it a little bit.
Right.
That was there to commemorate my 15th anniversary on YouTube. It doesn't say YouTube. It's just a play button. Well, it's the pause symbol, because I wanted it to always be playing. I don't plan on pausing my YouTube experience anytime soon. And then it's got the next button on there that you see on the YouTube player thing, so you can go to the next video. So it's, again, always looking forward. And then on the play line, it has 5:10. It's at the 5-minute and 10-minute mark, which is the date I started, May 10th. And then at the end, the video is 20 minutes and 8 seconds long. So that's when I started, 2008.
And you also have contrasting tattoos in the sense that one probably took about 37 seconds to do it, and one probably took hours. Now, how long did each of them take?
The one of the YouTube thing was maybe, it's about 20-30 minutes, not even quite that long. Most of that was just because he had to, size it up and make sure it posed a challenge, really, because it's not really a tattoo. It's more just like a mark, on there. And the one on my leg took maybe 45 minutes. And that was what I did for a running marathon. And then the new one on my arm, that was about close to 2 hours.
Wow. Was there any trepidation with doing something which was so exposed, so kind of out there?
No, that was kind of one of the reasons I wanted to get this most recent one, is because most of my tattoos you really don't see. And I thought, I really want something that I can show off. And I also want it to be clearly visible. You can tell what it is without having to explain it, even though if people ask, I'd love to explain deeper about what it means. But then it was just a matter of figuring out where to put it. I thought about putting it on my outer arm, sort of, on the other side of my bicep, but it's like a traditional place for a tattoo on a guy. But I always have a shirt on. So it would just be covered up most of the time. Maybe you'd see a little bit of it. My tattoo artist said that's why a lot of people do it up there, is because it's easy to cover up.
Really?
I'm like, no, man, I don't want to cover it up. So then it was just a matter of where do I want it on my forearm, on the inner forearm or on the outer forearm. And I think the inner forearm, you actually see more than on the outside. 'Cause the outside, when you're standing, your arm is sort of facing to your back.
Yeah.
But that was the only like big decision is where to put it on my arm.
The arrangement. So is
Yeah.
it meant to like look at others or for you to look at it?
It's for others to look at it. So if I'm holding my arm down to my side, you can see it. Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be upside down.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine a few years ago, was telling me she wanted to get a cross, like a Christian cross on her arm. And I said, well, which way is that going to be facing? And she was like, oh no, I want it facing me for my heart. And I go, when you're standing up, it's going to be an upside down cross.
Good point.
So she didn't do it. She's like, oh my God, I should probably think about that. I said, but I think that would be really cool. But
do you get a lot of compliments on it? Like,
I do.
Like people like really ask about it and all of the
rest? Yeah. So people are very curious. I was like, oh my God, did you get a new tattoo? And then they have to look at it, and it's fun. It's a good conversation starter. I haven't had any like total strangers ask me about it, but I guess that would be pretty uncommon. I've never asked anybody about their tattoos, a stranger. So, and
also because you are in the space that the tattoo represents, so a lot of people instantly connect with it because it's people in your community and stuff like that. I get that.
Yeah.
So how do you go seamlessly from that
to the topic of the day? So this is the first podcast we've done by ourselves it's been a while. Huh? We've had a series of guests. I'm backlogged on editing those podcasts, and that's something that eats at me. I'm working on Christopher Bill's podcast right now today. So I'll finish that up, which is good. So everybody listening to that, you've already heard it because it's already been posted long before this one.
Oh, that's true. That's
true. But
that
was so it was really fun talking to this latest round of guests. But then you and I were talking last week, and we thought, we should just do a show, maybe some more shows with just the two of us, talking about various topics, maybe having even a specific topic that we can start and branch off of.
And this all came to me because I was listening to another podcast, and it was talking about doing what you love to do, and then when you decide to like make money off of what you like to do. And it got me thinking about the way that people approach like their creativity and stuff like that. And I think the larger question that came out of it was, does it make sense to try to make money off of something like being a creator? And can you actually even do that? Like moving into 2024 and the current landscape and where everybody's attention is so, occupied elsewhere. Like, can you even like make a living?
In what ways do you see the current landscape of being, well, let's say a professional YouTuber? In what ways do you see that as more challenging today than it was, say, 5 years ago? Let's take out the COVID years, but let's just say, how has that changed in your mind?
When we started on this platform, it was about discovering a new spot where we all kind of like-minded people could kind of like express creativity. And then that kind of like peaked during, I guess, YouTube's golden years in 2017, 2018, I guess the period that you're referring to, where there was this small group of people where it started organically and they were figuring out that you could make money while doing something. Like, it was kind of like a bit of a trailblazing thing because it was the first time you could be empowered as an artist to not have to rely upon a record label or not rely upon a movie, company or whatever to like promote you or get you over. You could literally just kind of imagine this, broadcast yourself.
And those were like the first years, I would say around 2016, maybe a little bit into 2015. The first years where there were substantial numbers of people leaving their day jobs and having a lucrative career on YouTube. There were outliers before that. There were the big channels that were doing it full time and making a lot of money, but it really wasn't until around that time when it became a lot of people.
And because it was just so niche and just such a unique set of circumstances, and like just luck as well in a lot of cases, where it's just like, hey, you could literally do this for a living. We all kind of, jumped on what that looked like, and some of us released books, and some of us tried to parlay it into like late night television shows or like whatever.
Ouch.
But the underlying thing was there was always this YouTube community that one could go back to, where it felt like, well, at least here, this is kind of where we belong.
That was even reflected at VidCon.
Very much so. Like that lack of kind of belonging and that lack of community. I mean, obviously we helped scale what is now considered kind of like the norm as far as those things are concerned, because we went out and built the teams and then started with the fancy lights and production and slowly got away. And we've discovered, as we've talked about ad nauseum on this podcast, like how after a while that just like wears away at what you originally loved about doing this. Now you have other people that now you need to make money, and it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy where it's like we talk ourselves into thinking all of a sudden that this needs to be bigger than it is, and growing a team and whatnot. And I think in the future, like truly successful creators are going to not be reliant upon like that same stuff in order to be successful. Like you will be successful because you literally come across as being authentic and not about sponsorships and not about all of the stuff.
So you think it may like revert back to sort of the way it once was?
Well, like the cream rises to the top type of thing.
I think
like,
you're right.
We're exhausted with the whole like hyper attention and competition with like titles and thumbnails that it literally has to come back. Like who's doing something new?
I think it will have to. And it's also, and as far as like making money, can you really earn a living on YouTube in 2024? I mean, that's obviously a hot topic that people are curious about, especially people trying to get into YouTube. And I think that what you're talking about is probably the best route, probably the best bit of advice I think anybody could give is, I mean, it's almost cliched, for all of YouTube throughout the years to always say, just be yourself, be authentic and everything. But I think now more than anything, don't look at YouTube as something that you need to make yourself bigger than you already are. You don't need to come at it with this idea that you're producing some television show or anything like that. You don't have to buy into the hype that, Mr. Beast has the 150 people working for him and all of this kind of stuff that you can. And I think you're right that this is going to sort of be the theme of 2024. And I also think we have to probably get into how YouTubers have been their own worst enemies when it comes to earning money on YouTube, especially when it comes to sponsored brand deals. How many people have we talked to? We've talked to hundreds of YouTubers, and how many of these people are basically just getting fucked by brands? I mean, it's bad.
And it's not even that it's the brand's fault. It's just that's the expectation of what.
Well, that's what I mean. It's
to
sort
create my content. Yeah,
I think that's why can be our own worst enemy, because so many YouTubers, they come from, whatever day job they had, and all of a sudden some brand comes to them and is offering them, hey, we'll pay you $1,000 to integrate our brand. You spend all of this time doing that, and your video gets like over 100,000 views or something. You're getting screwed. And I think that a lot of YouTubers just don't even know what their value is. I think that's one of the biggest struggles of YouTubers, is knowing how much am I worth.
because it was probably overstated for so long. It was like during the time where YouTubers were releasing books, like the vast majority of them flopped. The late night television
Yeah.
shows, the people who were supposed to spin off into movies. I think
Yeah.
we got humbled, and I think the future will be people who will be able to effectively use YouTube as like a side gig and have a career and a job, which therefore then kind of changes your perspective about treating it more as a hobby, but being able to make as much money while treating it as a hobby. So therefore you don't need to worry about a social media manager and going and
Hmm.
becoming, oh, I got to worry about Instagram now because it's quote unquote my job, as opposed to not having it necessarily need to scale to like take over the world, and you just have a successful, hey, it takes me 5 hours a week to produce some videos about a subject that I like, and I've figured out how to do it well enough where I make a few extra $1,000, and we'll get away from that like
I mean, look at
2019 mentality of like, let's quit my job as soon as I pass 100,
right.
like as soon as I get a silver play button, like I'm quitting my job without any thought about like long term, because even we struggle like 15 years in, but like how do you kind of keep this going, and how long can you keep this going?
Look at these people within the past year whose channels have blown up in 1 year. They're people who are shooting with a phone by themselves and editing by themselves.
Yeah.
It's literally going back to the way YouTube started. And these channels, I can think of like Man Carrying Thing. His channel is going crazy. And Joel Haver. Joel Haver is probably a little bit more sophisticated as far as filmmaking, but he's still just a scrappy YouTuber making videos. I was talking to a tarot reader. I was telling you about her yesterday.
Oh,
I mean,
right.
her channel has gone to like 400,000 subscribers in just a couple of years. And all she does is she just shoots with her iPhone. She just sets it up and does these readings. I mean, there isn't a barrier to entry. And so for some reason, there's been this mindset in the past few years that it has to be some sort of big polished production, and it's like almost expected. You hear YouTubers constantly, almost like boasting, like, well, now I have a whole team behind me, like, well, okay, that just means you have a lot of overhead. Is that really making your content better?
Exactly. And now you're also creating the need to create content, so therefore you can retain this system.
Yeah.
And then that again gets away from what you're trying to do. So even though, like, then it becomes self-aware content, because then obviously the content that you're leaning into is the stuff that does have all the calls to action, and the more you throw that in, like, it's not an overnight effect, but there's an eroding effect to like
Yeah.
the true decay of a channel is the channel that still can get crazy numbers, but like in every single video, it is just so far away from what the original intention of the content was
Yeah.
in the first place. And I think it's just becoming more and more telling. So now you're getting more of a situation where you can have an internet a J type of situation where you can like come and do it as a concept or for a period of time, or just like have it as a part of, I can think of several successful YouTube channels which are a sports card and memorabilia, or Yu-Gi-Oh, or Pokemon, where it's just opening to you, like to your point, just set up a camera, here's me opening, and I have a couple wacky effects, and I edit it all together, and I can get hundreds of thousands of views, versus you who has to set up all these lights and call in your director of photography,
And then you're not making any money.
and you're not making any money, so
No.
everybody's miserable, and everybody's like worrying about, and then you start playing the, well, I'll slap a good thumbnail and a title, and hopefully that'll trick enough people into watching this crummy content.
And it is
but
trickery.
The only reason I made
no
this
matter
content,
no matter what you call it, that's trickery.
that's like let's circulate. It seems to be, yeah, and that's all it is. Because if you really wanted to do something different, you would kind of naturally, I mean, at least 10 times out of 10, as far as I'm concerned, you come at it from a different approach than like fear and trying to trick people into watching your content.
Right. I hate this idea that, and I don't want to get involved in thumbnails. We've talked about thumbnails ad nauseum on on this show, but I hate the idea that YouTube says establish a specific look to all of your thumbnails so people recognize them. And it's like, well, that's so kind of depressing. Can you imagine being like a movie maker, a filmmaker, and it's like, well, all of your films are different, but make sure all of the posters look the same.
Right.
You know,
Because
why do
that's
we
the
have to promote our art by making
Right.
it all look the same?
Right. And that's why when you're slapped in the face with a YouTube channel which comes across as low effort, because indeed it actually is kind of low effort, like they've figured, like that is
It's
the true
refreshing.
measure of success, because those people can turn the camera off. They're not glued to their analytics. They're not glued to what Mr. Beast's latest thumbnail is and what colors he's using and whether I should use they don't care. And like slowly over time, you know, with doing this podcast, we've run across a few creators who have just always kind of seemed to be in that space of like not really worrying about it. And like those creators are still here doing their thing, making good content.
I'm pretty proud to tell people that I really have scaled back most of my overhead. That and now if I hire somebody, it's only because I have a very specific need. Like I just hired a video editor for my other podcast. And he's done a few of those, and they look really great because it was just taking away so much time, and I'm not making any money off of that or anything.
Right.
But if I can continue to do that, it's like, to me, I'm spending that money on a hobby, and I like kind of the thought of that. It's no different than buying, you know, scale model kits or whatever. To me, it's like, okay, I'm going to hire this guy to do this thing, which was taking me way too long to do. Take that off of my plate, and then I can enjoy, you know, enjoy the results.
And I think of just how that's not, none of this is the good stuff that gets promoted by YouTube. And that's kind of, I guess, maybe the disappointing thing out of all of this is that it's not at VidCon, as we found out. It's not, you know, over here. It's not at, sadly, any of the conferences, not to talk trash about any of these conferences, but like that really just, I mean, isn't Vid Summit like run by Mr. Beast? Isn't it
Vid
mostly
Summit, yeah.
just people just trying to figure out like, hey man, give me the secret without appreciating that, like,
basically the whole Vid Summit should have been summed up with like, they should have just hung a big banner that says, just do Mr. Beast.
Yeah, a big
just copy what he does, because that's really all everybody's trying to do is just, and it's, I don't know.
We've talked about him a lot on this podcast usually, and more recently, definitely in more of a negative light. And it's certainly maybe not even him. He's just kind of doing his thing. The thing that really bothers me is his constant promotion on YouTube. Like he'll get the views regardless of whether you slam him at the top of trending. So maybe you could figure out ways to like truly, don't there like ways of promoting like upcoming channels just seem so half-hearted, as much as like I know so many people at YouTube, and they're all good people and like they all want the best thing, but when it comes across like it's this bland shelf that usually misses the mark algorithmically with like what I would actually be interested in. No, here's an interesting new comedy channel. Oh, here's someone doing something really unique. I come across this stuff randomly. I'm like, this is perfect for me. Why can't a basic AI algorithm?
Well, and maybe some of this does come down to just human nature and clicking those thumbnails. Maybe in some cases they are recommending these channels, but these people may not be sophisticated enough to do the Mr. Beast thumbnail. And frankly, it seems like everything just comes down to that thumbnail anymore. It's like just you just make the thumbnail and then that's all you got to do. And it is just it is trickery and it is clickbait. No matter what you call it, no matter if you say, yeah, but I deliver on the content. Yeah, sure. But you're playing this clickbait game because that's your number one priority. It's just to get people to click. And so you're going to come up with the image, whatever that image is that seems to work at the time, you know? And so I think that maybe some of that content, newer content is discoverable, but you kind of have to have a sharper eye to look for it, to see it.
Yep. And even if you could do it, how are you going to compete with Mr. Beast's team of 7 people that literally just work on thumbnails 24 hours a day for him?
That's pretty crazy. I don't know. But I do think that there needs to be more attention, especially paid to, we've talked about kind of the YouTuber middle class before.
Yeah.
I think that that's sort of a group that seems to have gotten lost in a lot of this, kind of people just grinding away and making a living, because it is difficult for them to know what their value is and how much they should be, how to talk to sponsors who are approaching them, how to say no, how to demand more,
Yeah.
all of these
Get
kinds of
what they're
questions,
worth.
because nobody's helping with that.
Yeah, and we mentioned the word belonging before, or like sense of community and all of that, and just like all of the disappointing failures that we've. So, well, I mean, that's why we're here to hopefully change something about that. Maybe I don't
Yeah.
know.
Did you see the Merriam-Webster word of the year?
No, what was that?
Authentic.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is the final downfall of the influencer, right? We're gonna get over the fake plastic, everything, like, right? Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not just like positive.
No, I think that word usually, I mean, it's like maybe authenticity and being authentic has kind of devolved into later this year is much more of a corporate buzzword, because
Yeah.
you would hear this a lot at VidCon and Vid Summit, and you got to be your authentic self. But I think at its core, there is so much truth to being that way beyond the corporate, you know, commercials and be your authentic self, buy Coca-Cola, you know, that kind of stuff. But I think that's true with any kind of, I guess, word of the year or whatever that it gets latched on upon. But you and I were talking about this back in January when we were doing our kind of resolutions and everything. And that was one of the things we were talking about, was we just want to produce more authentic content. So I'm not ashamed at all to use that word in its true meaning.
You know, the next episode that we do, just you and I, before the year's end, let's set out our resolutions.
Yeah.
Sorry, intentions.
Oh yeah.
Said the dirty R word.
Oh, I've already got a list I've started, so I'm working on it. I've got quite a few on there, and a lot of it is similar to last year's one, but we'll definitely go over this,
All right.
once January comes, because I think it's good to do that. I think it's good to just kind of, these are kind of some general things that I intend to do over the year, over the next year. I really like them. I know, and I talked about this last year, how resolutions kind of get a bad rap these days, but I think that it's a very positive thing to do, very reflective. And
It's just a different word. We all mean that we're just kind of setting goals and we're just trying to be better people. And I think that goes to what will ultimately become more consumed because it'll just be more popular. And you tell me if you feel the same way, because this is all I consume now, because I feel like I'm going through this huge personal journey, but I feel like so many more people are, especially because the podcasts that I listen to are becoming more and more popular, which are all self-help and self-improvement and learning how to just be a better person and sleeping well.
Right.
And I think there's going to be a push towards hopefully a style of content which makes people genuinely get good feelings and good takeaways, and that becomes the addictive thing that we all try to,
Boy, that would
strive after.
That would be great. I mean, we could use that in the world right now, where there's just so much darkness and despair. I think maybe I think that's a very positive, optimistic look. I hope you're right.
Like just anxieties everywhere, and like I think we're at the saturation point. So as soon as, like, the most shared podcasts are self-help, because people, for some reason, once you digest something that resonates so much, it's so easy to share it.
And we're starting to look inward, because everything outward has just become so overwhelming that I think that ultimately the only thing we have control of is ourselves. We have no, and I think that's what's frustrating to everybody. We have no control over genocide. We have no control over any of this stuff happening everywhere. So I think what we do is we look inward.
And you learn how to control your exposure to it, or limit it in certain ways, or you get what you need from it, but like also put it in perspective, because now we're just surrounded by like, I've been I've been so enamored by the thought of movement and like constantly kind of moving, not because I'm ADHD, but more so because life is movement. And I was listening to a podcast, and I never used to be that person, but now I know that the type of content that I'm listening to resonates, because I always start with like I was listening to a podcast. And
Yeah, right. It's the way to
isn't
lead
that
any
funny how that
sentence.
works? And in that podcast, they were, oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought because we had a little side quick. What was it?
But you've been making a lot of kind of personal changes lately. Do you want to talk about any of those?
I mean, all of them, and all of them come from a place of understanding. Um, uh, to your point, you can't control any of these, external kind of pieces of information, everything that comes at you. You can control the way that you bring them in,
Right.
and learning how building muscle and good healthy habits builds up a nice shield against all of this stuff. And just the thought of like, this person's making me feel this way, and we now live in a society where people like invite that in through social media. And the thought of movement, to my earlier point, is when you are less prone to sit, become stagnant, grab your phone, and literally lose 20 minutes of your life to just scrolling, or feeling like, oh, I need to figure out what the news is today and whatnot. And I just realized that more and more of the podcasts that I listen to now just literally echo the exact same sentiment. And it's not much, but it's like eat well, sleep, and exercise, and do all of that other stuff. And the other big thing that people talk about is just like, shut out. Like, you don't need to download all of this bad stuff that's going on and literally have it affect your emotions. You do control your emotions because you control whether or not you are upset by something.
I think the side effect of self-examination in that way, looking at ourselves, looking how we can improve who we are, is that it makes us more accessible to other people too. In a way, we're kind of opening ourselves up to other people. We're without that kind of self-reflection, we're building up walls between outward and incoming emotions, people, everything. These walls are real. I mean, in a metaphorical sense, and not to get too, mystical on this or spiritual or anything. I do think that that's a really valid endeavor to really examine who you are. What kind of improvements can you make in your life? What parts about your life are you unhappy with? And work on changing those. There's nothing wrong with trying to change who we are. And I think that maybe as men and as you get older, it's almost become like taboo. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's like not expected that men should ever change as they get older. It's like, well, this is the way you are. These are your ideals at age 35 or whatever. These are your goals. These are, okay, those set in stone. Don't ever change that. And like the worst thing you can call somebody is like inconsistent, or like, wow, this isn't the way you used to be. You've changed. And it's like, well, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe people need that level of change. And especially as we get older, there is so much value in taking care of your physical health, your mental health, your relationships. All of these things come together.
And how all of the things that we hear about and are fearing right now, as far as the diseases and strife and dementia and all of the things that we concern ourselves with, can literally either be stopped and in many cases actually reversed. And science and medical study after science and medical study piled on top of each other, backing up the fact, if you listen to, a few gems that have like floated, and there's only a few of them, there's like 10 or 20 or 30 like really good things that you should kind of be doing, everything else ends up being a distraction and taking you away from like, you only got a finite amount of time on this planet.
That's
so
right.
like, do you want to continue to like get upset about reading something on Reddit which makes you feel a certain way, because then you are indeed dude, we've talked about this off of the podcast, where it's like the conspiracy theorists were right. Like all along, there is a man in tight, like trying to keep you down. It's not contrived in the same kind of way. It's not whatever. It's just this social conditioning that we're used to.
It really is.
Everything
It's
on your
cultural.
plate. Don't do this because there was this fable mixed in with stories and and now we're just that overwhelmed that we're more interested in sitting watching Mr. Beast do something completely useless just with a stupid amount of money, because we are so drained we are so maybe more so willing to do something else than just be at peace with ourselves or sit at like by myself. And that was the biggest thing that brought all of this on, was like I kept feeling like I needed to go to the internet or alcohol or something, like whatever the bad habit might have been, or just habit in general in some cases, to like get what I need and to get like fulfillment, when actual fulfillment is just like being happy with myself and forgiving myself for like not being a perfect person at all. I've listened to podcasts about like the poison of perfectionism in today's like where we literally live in a society which is built upon what Instagram serves us up. And that's why I am disappointed at YouTube, which used to stand as a beacon of like uniqueness, and not that, how they've just become a parody of themselves type of thing. So the more I get in tune with myself and about making myself feel better, it's so drastic how little I have just time or space for really any of that. And it's not in a like I need to be anti about anything, because right now we're in a huge like you need to be anti something if you don't like
right. If you don't do something, that means you're anti. If you don't smoke, you're an anti-smoker. If you don't drink, you're an anti-drinker. That's not the case.
And with world events, needing to like I don't necessarily need to have an opinion on something, and my lack of not wanting to have an opinion on something doesn't say anything about me. But we live in a society where everybody wants
you have to form an opinion on everything, and there's like only two options on that opinion. There's no room for nuance. And part of the problem is there was actually a Kyrgyzstan. I don't know how to say that channel. What's that channel called? Kyrgyzstan. I don't know how to say it.
You're hoping for me to do better, but I won't be able to.
Well, it's one of these channels that's always, they post a video, it's always huge and trending and everything. But he just did one, and part of this was about how this idea of social media and putting us into these camps like this, and how we have gotten to judge people based on one thought, one idea, one opinion that a person has, and we extrapolate from that's their entire worldview, and that is they are in a different tribe than us, and we will no longer even listen to anything they say because this one thing that we disagree with. And he was kind of making the point that, well, in the past this wasn't the case, because you think of like your neighbors or something. You might talk to your neighbors, and if the neighbor said something that was maybe a little bit different than what you a different opinion on something than you have, you might disagree with them, but you still understand all the other aspects to this person. And you can think, okay, I'm still friends with him. He's still my neighbor and everything. I like all of the stuff but there's one thing, hey, maybe we have a difference of opinion on. With social media, that's amplified in such a way that people are forming complete opinions about people based on one little kernel or one little thing that they said. You see this all the time on YouTube or Instagram. You express one opinion, and people will sometimes comment or respond, well, that's it. I can't trust anything you say anymore because of this opinion. You even see this on like movie reviews. I mean, there's nothing more subjective than a movie review where somebody will say, I really like this movie, and then the comments will be like, well, shit, you've lost all credibility now.
Do you not understand?
You don't believe in this one thing the way I do, so therefore your entire worldview is null and void, and I'm going to my tribe over here.
Yeah, and I mean it's
and this is a new thing. This isn't the way it used to be.
there's always, I guess, with religion and other things, there's kind of always been that in the elements. But to that point, you could at least, I guess, arguably come together with the religions do indeed teach exactly that. It's
Yeah,
like,
I
hey,
mean, just
even
think
though there
about
are
your
people
neighbor
different,
who
right?
neighbor might have
Exactly.
a different religion, and you still get along with them. You still show up at picnics together. You still do things. Your kids might play together, but you might have a completely different religion than they
I,
have.
I think the difference is the noise that ended up getting created, and then the algorithms that ended up getting created just to capture our attention by knowing what noise resonates with us. And
Mm-hmm.
that like ended up making it where that if someone has a bad opinion, that isn't just something like you kind of like hear firsthand. It's like, that person, that was a bad take on that person's behalf, but I know this person and they are a good person at heart, and
Right.
they truly didn't mean to, call that handicapped person a this or a that. Like it was just whatever. Versus like saying something and then having that appear in 150 different articles from like news
Yeah.
organizations being shared on social media, and then everybody else like star fucking for lack of a better word,
Mm-hmm.
to like hop on that now using your name and, oh well, my opinion on this person is that they shouldn't have done that, slam that like button, guys. And then it just becomes this massive thing where it's like what would probably just be so easily disregarded is like, well, that's just a nuance in someone's character. Now like there's this microscope and it just gets
Yeah.
extrapolated so much and you get overwhelmed with it.
Yeah. So what are some of the actionable items you've been taking over? Because I think you've been at this for like a month now or so. Of like you've really been kind of making some big decisions and kind of just changing a lot about it yourself. What are some of those specific things you've been doing?
I worded it to my neighbor as I'm trying to do like the daily recommended thing, whatever percentage of everything that is just seeming to be like a good, healthy life. And as I move closer to it, I realized that like you realize how people who are in that space really just want to share it with everybody else
Mm-hmm.
about like, okay, so super, super, super duper basic stuff. Probably the most important thing, sleep. I used
Yeah.
to be that hustle mentality. I used to work late at night. I used to doom scroll in bed. I used to hang out in bed for a couple hours before going to bed. I didn't really make my bed every morning. I didn't think of my bedroom as a space to whatever. Now,
You think of it as more the place of just sleep, which it should be
which
mostly
it
a place
should
of
be, and
sleep.
we tend to bring all these distractions.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's just a bed, lights, um, and like lavenders, like a lavender essential oil or a couple other different essential oils, which are nice. But that's just to recognize it's literally just a trick to when I smell this, I know my brain knows it's close to
Mm-hmm.
bedtime. So you have that cold room. I open the window, and here in Canada, it can get pretty cold. So like the room is pretty super cold.
Oh, you sleep in cold. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, see, I can't do that.
Well, that ended up being all the little individual steps that got me from before doing probably 3 hours at most of like even like medium quality sleep, just like what would register as light sleep, about 4 hours of that, versus now I get like 8 hours every single night. And when I wake up, like it's so cliche to say, I hate being so cliche about it, but like I feel like I'm
Yeah.
up sometimes even before the alarm, and I'm just like, cool, let's go. And I'm just excited about what the day's going to bring. So it's like this
Mm-hmm.
whole, so that leads into probably the second thing, which is vastly limited my social media exposure. In
Mm-hmm.
the evenings, I don't use social media. In the mornings, I don't use social media. And I'm really only on social media if I have to kind of do something, or if I just want some inspiration for art or something like that.
Is there anything about it you miss?
No, absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And
See.
now I literally see it for what it is. And I'm like, I can't go back to it. Cause like I came to this place because I found out at 46 that I have ADHD. So I literally had to reset my life to like figuring out the right time to brush my teeth and how a morning and evening routine works. And like as I put like the real basic blocks together, I realized that like learning how to optimize each and every single
Mm-hmm.
one is such a like, it's literally what my brain wants. It's what my body wants. I'm a better person. I'm not
And
as stressed out about
it
things.
puts you in control over these outside stimuli rather than it controlling you, because
Yes.
I think back to even just 20 years ago, there was the notion of, well, I'm going to check my email. So it put you in the position of, you would actually physically go to a computer or laptop or whatever, and you would check it periodically, but it wasn't something that was constantly ding, ding,
Right.
ding coming to you. And that level of distraction, and I think that obviously has gone to the nth degree with the social media.
Now we're programmed just to pick up our phone and like, how many times do some people, and now I notice it all the time because I
Mm-hmm.
just don't do it, grab their phones to proactively engage, like, go to my, did I get it, refresh my email, did I
Mm-hmm.
did I get a new email, to like, it's almost like, when I, to go back to the ADHD thing, I just realized how important it is for me to be in control of my
Mm-hmm.
attention, and how right now anxiety and depression and sleeplessness and all of and cancer and dementia and that are, like, all of this stuff is driven by us, sorry to say, but like eating crap food,
Yeah.
not working out, sitting on the couch, surfing on your phone, and then having your kid kind of do the same thing in front of you. So like, there was,
It's a strange thing that, how is it that we have become where it's difficult to do what our bodies need? It's just so easy to just sit and do nothing and eat and just put in all this processed garbage into your body, drink ourselves to oblivion, and we are destroying ourselves. And we know that. I think everybody who has this kind of lifestyles will always say the same thing. Yeah, I shouldn't be sitting around like this, becoming just a big slob.
and that's social conditioning, because we think when we go out to the bar, we need to be the, like, oh, well, I need to drink now because it's what people do when they go out. And that's
Mhm.
actually not really much the case anymore. So it's kind of social conditioning. And then the biggest thing was, like, I just made an excuse for everything.
Yeah.
Oh, well, so, and then you end up going and trying to actively find information, that whatever that is, confirmation bias or whatever it is, like, you literally surround
Yeah.
yourself with, like, did you know in France they drink 1 gallon
Yeah.
of red wine every
Yeah. I
hour
always like that.
just to ensure that, and it's like, wait a minute. And then you sit and you have a
Yeah.
thing and you're like, I'm actually, and it's the mental gymnastics I would go through to be like,
Yeah.
I will do all of these other things, but I am not going to stop drinking. I'm not going to stop
Mm-hmm.
eating late at night or
Yeah.
eating
Yeah.
processed food. And like, you realize that most people are surrounded by, like, worrying about weight loss, and those
Mm-hmm.
things just representing weight loss, as opposed to those things representing, it's like, hey, the food that goes in your body is the energy that, like, this is all
It's
grade one
true.
stuff. And I only became aware of it because I felt like I kind of had to go back there. But
Yeah.
as soon as I did, I'm like, blink, blink. It's like, wow, it's really crazy to see the,
It's
how we're
it's
supposed to operate in this world, but
yeah.
what's actually good for us, because it's not drinking and it's not eating any kind of process. If you flip a thing around and there's
Yep.
ingredients that you can't read, it's ultra processed.
No, there's hardly any food
you're
product left
faking,
in it.
you're tricking
Yeah.
your stomach, you're tricking your brain. Well, you're playing games with
Yeah.
your brain, and that's even worse because you're getting weird dopamines because of the salts and the sugars. But you go around and being like, oh, but I walk 30 minutes a
Yeah.
day.
We
And all,
try to
like, we all
justify
try
it.
to find mental gymnastics, and that went back to, like, I'm just trying to get 8 hours of sleep. I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm going to only put food in my body that tastes good.
Yeah.
And actually, through that journey, that's been the coolest journey, is because I've rediscovered my love of grapes and fruits and, like, things which
Yeah.
provide, like, a natural sweetness but have fiber to
Yeah,
balance
food
it
kind of
out. And
becomes more important, really, when you're not just
yes,
shoveling in everything. I think it was funny you mentioned, like, being, like, justifying everything we do, because and we can all find, like, scientific studies or something, and I love the one about like red wine in particular, because for a long time that was kind of, and it's pretty much been busted as a myth. They would say, well, it's good for your heart to drink 2 glasses of red wine a day, and now I guess the American Heart Association, everything is like, say, no, 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 you probably maybe a one a week or something at last, because these studies were so biased, because there was a lot of for one thing, wine drinkers in particular are probably more socioeconomically advantaged than other drinkers. And so there's this elevation that they probably already live a healthier lifestyle because they're wealthier and they have, so the wine isn't really the thing, because alcohol is alcohol. It doesn't, your body is going to
Right.
respond to it no matter if you're just drinking straight moonshine or if you're drinking wine. But I think that there is this thing, there's like the cliche where I live, the Marin wine mob, and I don't know if you know that kind of type of the wine mom who is like very like upper middle class and who just loves to have that couple glasses of wine every single night.
I've been in gift shops in like super high end hotels and like golf courses and stuff like that. And they'll always be like, oh, it's wine o'clock. And that's just that whole thought of like,
guys do that with beer.
It's been a long
the same
day.
thing
I'm going to sit back and crack a beer with the boys, where it is actually becoming so much more socially acceptable. Like, hey, you guys want to go to the oxygen bar? Well, no one's doing the oxygen bar, but like you want to go get a coffee at the it doesn't need to be like, we're starting to erode that kind of thought process. And I guess that kind of goes full circle to what I was saying earlier, where I think that's going to be the type of content that people are going to want to learn about. So that's just going to become a real empowering thing. Like, you realize how, when you control what you watch and what you consume, like how like that is such a fulfilling thing that you really question why you would want to be distracted, because you realize how beautiful your attention is, like how beautiful it is, and how I should be focusing on painting and making videos because I like making videos, and not making videos because there's 6 people in my company and I have to keep the wheels going. So there you go. I managed to bring it full circle.
You brought it all back. Yeah. I think you're onto something here. And I can attest to the fact that exercise, diet, and sleep, man, those
do
are
a
the
lot of
3
these
things.
things.
You can do those 3 things. And it has to be on a regular basis. I'm pretty convinced of that, because a lot of people will do that one walk a week and they're like, well, I've gotten my exercise. And it's like, well, no, you really need to push your body.
You need to do high intake. Like you don't even need to do very much of it. I like to do a lot because I'm now going to try to build out it's the ultimate canvas is your own body.
And I guarantee once you start seeing results, you're going to want to continue. I've been on cutting in the last few months, and I've lost almost 20 pounds, believe it or not. But it was all because I've been pretty lean for a while now, but man, those like love handles, that dad bod thing. And I'm like, I don't want a dad bod. I know these guys are trying to convince themselves that, women really love the dad bod these days. But okay, good for you. But I don't want that. And I know that I was like, God, I've been working out so hard. Why am I not seeing my abs? And it's because that fat is the last place to go on men, is right around the waist. And so when you get rid of that fat, all of a sudden that hard work you've been putting in on those abs and your muscles is starting to show up. And you're like, well, damn, that looks pretty good. Because I do have kind of a little bit of body dysmorphia, I guess. I'm never really too thrilled with how I look. And so when I can see these kind of changes, it's very encouraging. And I guarantee anybody who is listening to this, who is thinking about making changes, stick with it. Try.
Absolutely.
At least give yourself a month, but I would try, 6 weeks to see any real change, because you're not going to see change right away, but you will notice your body changing, your mental outlook changing. You'll notice all kinds of positive changes just by getting your diet and exercise under control, and sleep.
Yes, sleep ended up being the main reason why I decided to quit alcohol. I figured I could probably done everything else aside from, by the time I would have been in a space to be like, this is the time that I can enjoy alcohol because it's the appropriate time to enjoy alcohol. It always came at a time where it's like, my bedtime used to be, oh man, you've known me for a long time. So you probably remember the days when my bedtime was like 2 o'clock,
Well,
3 o'clock in the morning.
that's the thing, because you're on the East Coast, and I'm on the West Coast. So there's a 3-hour time difference. It was always funny because I'd be like 11 o'clock at night and I'd get a text from
me,
you.
yeah. Because I'd be working on
Always
something, or
up,
just,
yeah.
again, my attention was, and again, bright screens and so and then I started becoming, well, whatever, after becoming a parent, you kind of have to get up at a certain time. But then it was like dragging myself around and just feeling so sluggish in the morning, and just feeling like as a slave to like what your day is. Like you're just always being pulled through, as opposed to, this sounds so crazy, because old Chad would have been like, get out of here, new Chad, with your silly 8:30 bedtime, sometimes even like 8 o'clock bedtime, and ideally sleeping by 9. So therefore I can get as much sleep, because I need a 10-hour window in bed to get like 8 hours of sleep. I need 2 hours, because I haven't perfected that. But that used to be a 10-hour window in bed and like 3 hours of sleep. And then the rest was just me thinking I was sleeping. Like I would wake up and be like, I don't remember literally lying awake, but I wasn't sleeping. That's the crazy thing.
And these things are also interconnected, especially sleep and drinking are hugely connected. I had my biggest sleep problems when I drank. You know the feeling. You've drank, had a good evening. You don't even have to get drunk. And then you go to sleep. I'm so tired. This will feel good. And then 3 hours later, boom, you're wide awake.
Yeah. Yeah, and you would put yourself through it every single night, never ever even just once, at least for me, being one to be like, no, tonight or this weekend I'm going to prioritize, whatever. And I want to start and then I started realizing, as I paid more and more attention to my sleep, I wear a little ring which tells me exactly when I sleep and how I'm sleeping. It gives me kind of basic tips, but obviously no eating before bed, don't stare at my screen, do all this good stuff with my with my room, and dim the lights and whatnot. And then when I wake up in the morning, lots of bright light. I've started walking on a regular basis, getting the sun on my face. Apparently,
that vitamin D,
holy crow! Another big thing is drinking water. You don't. Every morning now.
Didn't even mention that.
So this is a thing for you. Tell us.
Drink water all day long.
How much water do you drink?
My water bottle right here. I basically carry a water bottle with me all the time. So this is like 32 ounce or 20 ounce bottle, and I probably fill this up maybe 6 times throughout the day. So it's a lot. And then when I go to work out, if I'm going to have a good strenuous sweaty workout, I fill it up with one of these electrolyte tabs, that put it in there. And I think water is so rejuvenating, especially first thing in the morning. That's what I do. Is I just literally chug 20 ounces, this entire bottle. I just even if I don't feel like I can drink it all, I just like to get that all in me. And it just kind of, I know technically it's not lubricating my body, but it feels to be like, okay, this is good. And also if you're trying to lose some weight and you're trying to cut some calories, it kind of fills up your stomach a little bit.
Oh my goodness. And then just about the thought, the amount of water that you lose during and it's you it is literally, you're drinking yourself. It's the most. And I used to nonstop drink Coke Zero, thinking I was doing myself a favor by avoiding the sugar. I was avoiding all of the sugar.
Well, you do avoid sugar, so I mean it's definitely better than drinking the 8 tablespoons of sugar in a Coke.
It wasn't even that was the rub with Coke Zero. And all, like, I will still enjoy one, obviously. I don't mind it, but like at my peak, I was drinking I would have like 3 or 4 a day type of thing.
That's a lot.
Always, it is a lot. And the other thing I didn't factor in was the caffeine.
Oh yeah,
that was literally also eroded. So there was like, get rid of caffeine, start eating well, foods that actually help you sleep better, and then when you sleep better, you have more energy to do things. So therefore, you start appreciating when you put the food in your butt. Like it's this weird, large, self-fulfilling cycle that you're like, great, I'm on this like enclosed circle of like, I feel very The important thing about strength training I mentioned earlier is it feels like it's like this shield against everything.
Mhm.
And it literally is. Like working out every single day or whatever, working out on a regular basis,
Mhm.
or at least getting activity every single
Mhm.
day in whatever form it is the quickest way to avoid dementia, avoid Alzheimer's,
Absolutely.
avoid cancer,
And there have
avoid
been
heart
actual
disease, avoid liver disease.
studies on these. Yeah, this is
Every
a
single
proven.
thing. Like the
Yeah.
people, like I've listened, the amount of podcasts that I've heard about certain experts all wording it in different ways and bringing up all of the different like advantages of you just doing high intensity training or weightlifting or like resistance. The thing is building muscles, because what muscles actually do with all of the other stuff, and that's all complicated, but you just need to know you need to work out your body, you need to feed it so it has good stuff inside, and you need to rest it, because rest is literally the most important.
So I'd like to recommend Jeremy Ethier. I'm not sure how to say his last name.
Okay.
Ethier, Ethier, on YouTube. He's a fitness guy, but what he does is it's the science of diet and exercise, and he goes through not just papers published on the effects of these things, but he goes through like the whole meta-analysis, and that's like the most effective one, where somebody analyzes all these different studies and puts them together into one. So it's like he's really good at presenting this. And so if you're looking for a YouTube channel that kind of cuts through a lot of the bullshit in the fitness space, I think that would be a good one to look into, because it's very interesting and well documented what he does, especially if you're a sciencey type who wants hard facts, which who doesn't?
Which who doesn't like a good hard fact?
That's what she said.
Well, thanks for that recommendation. I love sharing this type of stuff. I find
Yeah, we'll have to get into this some more. This was a good conversation.
I have a funny feeling we'll be talking more about self-help in the future.
Yeah, and keep on the path, righteous man.
Thank you. You've actually been quite the inspiration. You,
well, thank you,
young man with the excellent skin.
I'm a god. No, I do feel like I have. Yeah, you see, this is actually, not to drag this out too much longer, but this is one of the side effects of living better, is that you have a better, more positive attitude about yourself. You'll feel better. You'll feel more confident. And all of I cannot stress enough the benefits, especially as you get older, to taking care of your body. And just come on, stop eating this shit.
It's very true. There's a lot of convincing reasons why you want to, but it is that one nagging one, which is literally the one that takes you a step in the right direction.
I am 57 years old, and I am stronger than I have ever been in my entire life, and I'm more fit than ever.
I feel the exact same way, and I feel like the trajectory is. I'm looking forward to smashing records of
all those
being
PRs,
and it doesn't matter if I do or not, because I feel good about it, and that gives me the zest each morning.
It's all we need. Thanks for listening, everybody.